11-0 to pass it, it still doesn't matter. So, but I would like to hear from Amber about her perspective of that night.
Thank you, Commissioner Ownby, Chair, fellow commissioners. I guess since Patty said Amber, I will come up and speak. And my name is Amber Rountree, and my address is 2604 Fisher Place. I guess, yes, as Commissioner Ownby said, it was a very long and tedious meeting. I think I needed a coffee IV drip to get through that meeting. But I think just the reality is there were lots of legal questions and concerns, and I did hear Commissioner McKenzie state that he felt like he watched the meeting and thought that the legal issues were fully vetted. I'm not sure if it's the practice of this body to make snap decisions on million-dollar contracts. I personally don't want to do that. I don't feel like it would be doing my fiduciary duty. So when you walk into a meeting and you're given 2 drafts of a contract and you're expected to make a decision with taxpayer funds, while we did have a very lengthy and rigorous discussion, I do not agree that that contract was fully vetted, and I do believe that, excuse me, Law Director Armstrong several times stated that there were concerns with the wording of certain parts of the contract. So I was the one that tried to amend the contract, tried to make a motion to postpone it, because I personally would have been much more comfortable to vote on a contract that had been fully vetted and not rushed to be voted on that evening. So if anybody has any other questions.
Thank you.
I do.
Oh, you have a question of the presenter?
Ms. Rountree, yes.
Yes.
Ms. Rountree, I would like you just, again, to restate that fact that the first time you saw this piece of paper were handed to you when you got to the meeting that night?
There were 2 different versions that were given to us, and I guess just to back up a little bit, I believe that, and the law director could probably speak to the timeline much better than I could, but we received our agenda for that meeting, I believe, late Wednesday afternoon, right before the Thanksgiving holiday, and my understanding was that the law director had been working with the chair to diligently make sure that all the changes were made that needed to be made to the contract. And I think it was, most folks were taking vacation or out of town or traveling for the holiday, and we had our meeting on the Monday after Thanksgiving. So I know I was traveling with my family, and I didn't have access to necessarily sit down and study it in depth at that time. I did make time to study it, and that day I studied it. But we also, when we got to the meeting, had a version that the law director's office had made some more additional changes in light of further discussions with the chair and Dr. McIntyre. That was my understanding. I think the reality of what it all boils down to is that the contract was not running up on December 1. There was no need for us to make that weighty decision that evening, given that there were considerable legal questions, and that was why I felt that I couldn't support the contract. Thank you.
From what I hear you saying is that there are things that you did not like about it that you would have wished to change, and you did not get a chance to get those vetted out that night. Is that correct?
Well, I tried to make quite a few motions to get some things changed, and some of them failed. And so my goal at that meeting was just to give us some more time to read through the contract. And we did, as Ms. Sanger said, we did take a break, but I find it very difficult to give a contract that's very detailed your full attention in a crowded room in the AJ building with lots of folks in there talking. So I think it was just, if you were at the meeting, I know some of you were, it wasn't an ideal condition in which to study and make a decision with taxpayer dollars.
Well, that's kind of like the mayor handing us a budget on Monday morning before we're supposed to vote on it Monday afternoon. That's not a small amount of money. You're talking about a major amount of money. And I would applaud you and your 3 cohorts for standing up for what you believe and trying to get information that would maybe have gotten us out of here 45 minutes ago, had it been done properly. So thank you very much for your service.
Other questions of this presenter?
Or Miss Bounds is still back here. Oh, and I see Miss Deathridge is still over there.
Thank you, Ms. Rountree.
Thank you.
Commissioner Broyles?
Yes, I actually have two questions. Amber, you had said that you were presented with two versions of the contract, and I was just wondering, where did the second version of the contract come from?
Okay. When we came in, we had two different versions. One was marked at the top board version, and there was a version at the top marked, I believe, law director version. Is that correct, Mr. Armstrong? I can't remember what the notation was.
That was the essence. We had one that we had prepared over the week to try to get out. We got it out about 1 o'clock to the board.
Was that was
The legal
the board
form.
version?
That was the
No,
legal
no,
form.
okay.
That was the legal form.
Okay,
And then there was another one that was titled board version.
okay,
And in the process, they had the two side by side, and they worked through the two contracts till they came up with what you might want to say is a third, the one that we have before us that was actually voted on and approved. And then it was amended, redone, and, as they voted, and sent over to the law director's office for review.
okay. Okay, so where did the board version come from?
I don't really know. It was there when I got there. It was laying on everybody's desk.
Okay.
I mean, I have no idea.
Okay, and here's my question. It boils down just to the very basic. Based on the consent decree and the fact that part of what we're being asked to vote on is not in proper order or in legal form, as our attorney and as our advisor, what do you recommend that we do?
Well, I can't tell you how to vote. All this notation says is that in this contract, there are some elements that may not be enforceable. But the contract itself has a severability clause. So anything in there that may not be enforceable does not void the contract. It's still a contract that is a legal contract if accepted and bound, but there may be elements in it that may fly or may not fly. And we have one of them that is a question to the Attorney General, which will be clarified at some point in the future. And that's really the legal issue. I mean, there's a lot of legal issues around it. It's not a policy issue. The policy issue has already been made. The board has voted on it. So you have a legal contract or a contract that is that has been passed by an administrative board, and the statute gives them the power to do that. Like I said, if it weren't for the consent agreement, it wouldn't even be here. The only reason it's over here is because of the consent agreement. And beyond that, it's before you to do as you want to. But the effect of it is we have a contract on the street offered to a director of schools by the appropriate body.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an accounting question. Under item number 14, it says, Knox County, in the event of such termination, Knox County Board of Education shall pay to the superintendent his full salary consistent with the terms of this contract from the actual date of termination established by the Knox County Board of Education through the expiration date of the contract. Now, under compensation, it says shall be $227,256 on an annual basis. My question is, how much has to be set aside into to the unassigned balance or reserve account to cover this obligation, and is that money available to do so?
This is a question, I guess, that you're addressing to the Board of Education. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, sir. Bob Thomas, 912 South Gay Street. Commissioner, we at some point several years ago did put a reserve on that total amount. What I can't stand here and tell you tonight is if that reserve is still there. Our fund balance situation, of course, we got down fairly close to the 3%. So I'm going to have to check to be sure if that reserve is still there. But we did it several years ago upon the advice of County Finance Director at that time.
Where did that go?
Pardon me, Commissioner?
Where did that go? The reserve that was there to cover that obligation?
The fund balance, it would just be a reserve, which is legal, makes it legally required to be used for that purpose. So that would be the appropriate thing to do, is to have a reserve in the amount of the full contract, because that's the liability.
Right.
Mr. Caldwell, did you wish to opine or give an opinion?
Chris Caldwell, front at Main Street. I don't know if I wish to opine, but I will. I'm looking on my dandy smartphone here. So, in 2014, we did have $1 million set aside in committed fund balance. I can't sit here and tell you that was for that contract, but it was for some contract. That is not there in 2015. What is there basically is $2.4 million in what we call non-spendable fund balance. I know I'm boring you all to death. And then $240,000 in assigned and $13.3 in unassigned. Now the unassigned is the important piece. That's where the 3% has to be. Here's what I would say though. This is a large contract that is material, and so once that contract is approved, I would assume what we need to do is treat it like any other contract and encumber that money, and it be encumbered, and then each year it's brought down. And so that's how, to me, the accounting of it should be treated, is to treat it as an encumbrance.
But the funds are there to encumber.
Well, I don't know what the 3% number is, but there are funds there. I don't.
I thought you said there was 2.4 that was unassigned.
No, it's a 13.3 that's unassigned. Now, what amount of that is the 3%? I don't know. I want to think that the number was about 600,000 over the 3%. That's what I want to think. Is that?
And I think it might have finished a little stronger than that, but we were, before the books closed and all, we were looking at 600. I think it maybe is around 950,000, I believe. Went up just a little bit.
Commissioner Bussler?
Has Commissioner Brown spoke on this before?
Commissioner Brown, I think, is going to call for the question, but I'm going to stop him here.
No, I'm going to ask for a substitute motion. That's
Commissioner
that's
Bussler?
always in order.
Okay, why I asked that question, if you speak on a subject, everybody has to speak on it, or who wants to speak on it before it comes back to the person again. It's in Robert's Rules of Order, number 49, in the document on that. So I'm just saying that. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you giving me this time, but Ms. Sanger, I want to tell you, I would have voted for this contract if it had came over here in legal form. It was asked by the board that you're on for a postponement, which would not have affected you all voting on it in January, yet it comes over here and we're having discussions on it, which we shouldn't have had because it's not in legal form, and because I took an oath of office that says we have to vote, or if we're going to vote, and our law director gave us opinion that it's not in legal form. I can't vote on anything that's illegal, and this is not legal, so it must be illegal. But anyway, I guess I'm going to get an appointment by our law director, but that's the only reason I was saying that, is that it was asked to be postponed, and I would have rather had it over here in a good form. I know I'm going to get spoke to now.
I've never spoken to you that much before, so I'm excited. But I would just like to address that again, that our law director has said it is a legal document. It is a legal document, but there might be there is a question as to if something is of legal form. Is that correct?
It's a legal document before this board. There are elements in it that may or may not be enforceable.
Okay, and so let's say, for example, last year, or in 2013, the superintendent's contract, it said that to fire a superintendent, you had to have supermajority,
Right.
correct? And then the Attorney General came back and said that if that is not correct, it's 5-4, so that was not enforceable, but it was a legal document. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay,
That's what we
I
have.
feel like I've gone to law school today. Okay, so basically, that's what this document is. It is a legal document. There may be a couple things in there when the Attorney General, we're still waiting. It's been over 14 days since apparently we've asked for that. So if that, and it's over one word. And it's that one word has actually been in all the other contracts. And it will be interesting to see too, because if that's overturned, it may actually void most of the superintendent contracts in the state, if it's that one word. So, I mean, just think about that. Like, I think we're all focusing on the 5-4 and if people could vote or not vote, coming in, but really it's just a legal document. It's legal. There are a couple things that may not be legal form. I suggest or hope that you vote to pass it, because if and when we hear back from the Attorney General, it'll still be a legal document. Like, one or two things may not be enforceable. That's it. That happens all the time in contracts. I don't think that's uncommon. So I would hope that you will vote for it, but.
Okay. Let me go back and let me
Okay.
see if I can explain this a little bit better.
All right.
Okay. I was there the night that, it went on, and it was requested to where they could look at it a little bit farther because of that instance of a ruling by the law director. Okay, the law director gave an opinion on it. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the county to look at certain things and ask questions about it. And my question is, would any contract that comes through here, is it in legal form? Okay, the opinion of the law director, who I respect, says it's not in legal form. Therefore, it has to do with monetary value. And if it has to do with monetary value and it's not in legal form, I don't see how we can vote for it. Because if it does, it says, okay, the contract is null and void by the state attorney general, then it's really not a contract, I don't think. I mean, that's just the way I feel about it. And I'm sorry, Bud, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Let me help you a little bit, Charlie.
Can you help me out a little bit here, please?
The contract is not, because an element of the contract, let me rephrase this. Because something in the contract may or may not be enforceable, there is what we call a severability clause or a saving clause that saves the contract in terms of its legality, even if something within it is not enforceable. So, for example, if for some reason one of the issues is found to be unenforceable, the rest of the contract, as voted on, is enforceable. The contract itself will still be a legal binding document, but it's like Ms. Sanger brought out on the evaluation vote, the supermajority evaluation vote. The Attorney General opined that was not enforceable. Well, okay, so in that part of the contract, it's not enforceable, but the rest of Dr. McIntyre's contract was enforceable. And what we're saying to this board tonight is we have an ambiguity out there that may or may not be enforceable that I can't say that's enforceable. We're waiting on an opinion. But that does not speak to the entirety of the contract being unenforceable. So the contract, we have a legal contract offer to Dr. McIntyre approved by the administrative board. And beyond that, that's where we are, and we're just waiting on an opinion about one element in it to see if it in fact is enforceable as written. Once we know that, if not, then we'll probably go back to the school board and say, we got to just do something about it, because it is a term issue. It's not just something that just falls off to the wayside. But this is not void of contracts, what I'm trying to say.
Right, and Commissioner Ressler, like referring, I think, to the incident you were talking about at the end where it was objection to the question, I mean, that actually took me a 5-second Google to understand that you can only object to the question actually at the beginning. And so that really should never even happened. And then we were given advice also about whether or not it was 6 votes to defeat, but it's really 6 votes to sustain. So, you know, that issue should never even been an issue. But I mean, I agree with the law director. I think that what we've done is a legal document. I hope that you all would go ahead and support it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Sanger. Commissioner Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Law Director, do you think it's possible we can get this opinion by next Monday?
I would say it's highly likely, but I can't tell you what an attorney general is going to do or not do.
Then I'd like to make a substitute motion that we pass it on with no recommendation.
That's the motion that's on the floor right now.
I'll second that.
That makes 4, so you got to vote.
The motion, excuse me, Commissioner Smith, are you, whose light's on? Commissioner Smith.
Hitting the wrong button here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as legal form, from what I'm hearing, we have a legal contract. We may not have legal form.
I think there's some elements where there is not legal form, yes, but that does not void a contract. It just puts you on notice that parts of the contract may or may not be enforceable.
The bigger question I have about voting on this is I don't want to vote on this until I have proof that we have the ability to encumber the funds to cover this contract. I don't think the Board of Education is allowed to pass contracts for which they don't have the money to cover.
Now, seeing no further lights or requests for discussion, I would visit for just a second with Commissioner McKenzie, who has on the table a motion of no recommendation. I know that this board has to vote tonight because we will not discuss this next Monday. We have to vote tonight, so I would request that you withdraw or change or whatever the technical thing.
You make a great point, Mr. Chair. I will change my vote that we vote to approve.
I'll change my
Question.
second.
Why do we have to vote on it tonight?
We cannot discuss it
We
Monday.
just talked about that at length last month, didn't we? Yeah. Mr. Chair.
This is the night.
So tonight is the night that your light's not on and I'm not recognizing you. Tonight is the night that we must, and we've discussed it. We have discussed it at length. Everyone has made up their mind about where we stand, which is not relevant. The thing that is before us, as you may want to submit, is a invalid contract or a flawed piece of paper, but it came from the elected Board of Education. We have a right to discuss it tonight, and that's all the right we have. It is passed. It is passed. Can I say that, Mr. Law Director?
Well, it's not an invalid contract. You have before you a valid contract. Yeah.
I stand corrected. We have before us a valid contract approved by the Board of Education, and it is our duty, come Monday, to vote yes. It's our duty tonight to vote yes or no. Yes, she withdrew her second. Was she the second?
She approved the second.
Yeah, I did.
She approved the second.
My light's on.
Discussion is ended. Can I say that? Can I say discussion is ended?
Say whatever you want to, as long as the vote doesn't override it.
Commissioner Brown?
I'll say it this way first, a point of order. We can suspend the rules anytime we want to and go back on any particular subject we want to.
What is before us is a motion to approve. Roll call vote. And you'll notice that, Amy, you're going to get to vote first, beginning in the second.
Commissioner
Aye.
Broyles? Commissioner McKenzie? Oh, Commissioner Broyles votes aye. Commissioner McKenzie?
No, he'll be last.
Can go backwards.
You can't go,
Mackenzie will be last.
I know you're so used to calling my name first.
Next time, it will be Smith voting first.
Now, can I go to Commissioner Smith? Yes. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith votes aye. Commissioner Ormby?
No.
Commissioner Ormby votes no. Commissioner Schoonmaker?
No.
Commissioner Schoonmaker votes no. Commissioner Anders?
Yes.
Commissioner Anders votes aye. Commissioner Bessler?
pass.
Commissioner Bessler passes. Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright votes aye. Commissioner Brown?
No.
Commissioner Brown votes no. Commissioner Thomas?
Pass.
Commissioner Thomas passes. Commissioner Brantley?
Aye.
Commissioner Brantley votes aye.
You're not done yet.
Commissioner
Hang on.
McKenzie?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie votes aye.
Do any of those that have passed wish to vote? Go down the
Bessler
list.
or Thomas?
Go down the list.
Commissioner Bessler, do you wish to vote?
Do you wish to vote? You wish to pass?
I just wish to pass because we'll vote.
Commissioner Thomas?
Mr. Thomas.
Pass.
X3,
Can I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman?
pass.
Before the vote is announced, does anyone wish to change their vote? Can I recognize him? Okay, point of order.
I think point of order, the clarification is it doesn't matter how you vote tonight. It's on education consent. It's a yes vote Monday.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was my comments a few minutes ago. Now then, to announce the vote, it's 6 aye, 3 no, 2 pass, motion carries. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item 13 is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of grant funds for the Knox County Schools as shown on the attached list of grants. Resolution 203.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve and a second. I see no lights, but I am the person that pulled that. The reason being is you'll notice that it is a change. Okay, Commissioner Bessler.
Have we got a motion and a second yet?
Most certainly have.
Okay. I was trying to find it on my agenda. What I would like to ask on this right here is what is the total funds that's on this? And will it require any additional hiring to administrate these grants that we're approving?
These are donations, not grants.
Oh, it says grants right here. 203.
13 is grants.
Grant funding.
Let me then back up and start where I was a moment ago. You'll notice this is a change in the process by which we've been being presented authorization to accept funds. The Board of Education receives funding through grants. They now, I do not want to say lump them all together because they are individually listed in this resolution. And the resolution is to approve them all at one time as opposed to having several pages of paper taken up and listing all the grants, which could be of small values. Now then, do you still have a question related to this resolution?
All our question was, the amount is I know it's around $1,700. Will there be any additional hiring required, or can it be handled in-house to handle these grants?
Mr. Oakes, could you address excuse me, I see Mr. Thomas.
All I need is a yes or no.
And Mr. Thomas?
Oh, yes, sir. Commissioner, the best I can remember from, I don't have the documentation that you're looking at, but the best of my knowledge from what I remember from the board meeting, I do not believe those will take additional personnel to administer. However, I would reserve the right to check, just to be sure, because I do not want to stand here and tell you something that's not true. But I will do that and have that information factual for you. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Motion is properly before us. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Item number 14 is a resolution